guys, this is With coming at you with another video. This one is a little bit different than what you're used to seeing on my channel, and I think I'm going to, well, I would like to continue to do these videos in the future if time permits, and if just my general mindset permits. We'll see how it works. But I want to talk about gaming history and the things I've been through as a gamer that maybe you guys might find interest in. And this first video is going to be about Resident Evil 1 and the PlayStation 1, and potentially Resident Evil 2, depending on how long the conversation goes. We'll see what happens. But I'm not really going to talk much about my feelings about Resident Evil 5 and 6. First, I haven't played Resident Evil 6 yet, so I can't give you an honest opinion about that. I can tell you that 5, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I think 4 really was one of my favorites in the series, and obviously the first game, but 4 for me was pretty scary. A lot of people don't think it was, but I felt like 4 was pretty intense, pretty thrilling game. Just an amazing game all around, and regardless of the differences from the first 3 games, I thought 4 was an amazing game, and overall one of the best games ever made, and one of my top 5, top 10 favorite games of all time. But anyways, before Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 1, the shit that started it all, PlayStation 1. So, before I talk about Resident Evil 1, I gotta start talking about the PlayStation. And now, I remember when the PlayStation came out, I was living in Gainesville, Florida, in an apartment complex called Glen Springs Manor, and that shit was thug. That apartment complex was hardcore. You had to know people to get through that bitch. Luckily, I was pretty cool. I could play some football, so I made it pretty well in there. But we're a poor family. First off, I'm gonna get that out of the way. My family was poor as shit. We didn't have money for much. Like, I think we had Section 8, which in Florida, what Section 8 is this thing where you get like rent for way fucking cheaper than other people because you wait on a list for years, and after you get to that list, like to the top of the list, finally after years of waiting, you can get on Section 8, which is like you pay like a fraction of rent. So if rent is like $600, you're paying like $50 a month. So we're living in Glen Springs Manor, and when I say we, I mean me, my sister, and my mom. My dad out of the picture by that time. He was gone. So it's just my mom taking care of my sister and I. I'm 15 or 14, around there, 13 at the time. My sister 2 years younger than me. So do the math. But PlayStation 1 comes out, and I think my stepdad was still in the picture, but he didn't really live with us. He was back and forth, so I really don't consider him like a full-time part of it, but he did have a big part in the PlayStation, so I will keep him into this story. So PlayStation 1 comes out, and obviously before it came out, Target, or the gaming store at the time, or the department store at the time, had a PlayStation demo. And they were running Battle Arena Toshinden demo. And the first time that I ever saw a PlayStation in action was in a Target store. And I go in there with my mom. And the first thing I do is, anytime I go into a department store, I'm going straight to the electronics. Do what the fuck you want to do. I'm going to the electronics. I'll see you when you get to the electronics, okay? That's where I'm headed. I'm going to the electronics. So I'm walking over to electronics, and I'm looking, and I'm like, my jaw just consistently gets lower and lower. I'm like, what the holy, and I'm freaking out. I'm like freaking the fuck out. Battle Arena Toshinden on a PlayStation. That controller is like a fucking spaceship. That shit was like, bow. It was like, damn, this shit is silver in your face. Next generation, motherfucker. Welcome to the new gaming. Welcome to what is going to be your future. Look at this shit in your fucking face. Don't you wish you had this bitch? And I'm like, oh my god. I had to get my hands on that flighty ass fucking game. And I'm gonna tell you right now, Battle Arena Toshinden, yes, it is a flighty ass fucking game. But at the time, it was the best fucking flighty ass game I've ever played in my life. That shit was epic. Yeah, it took a minute to jump and land, but still, that shit was off the chain at the time. And I was like, holy fucking hell, I can move up and down, side to side, back and forth, left and right. This is the fucking bomb. Like, I'm talking about, wow. So I'm playing the game, right? And I'm like, I gotta show this to my mom. And not because I knew she would like it, but because I wanted her to know this is on my Christmas list. And this is right here. This is what I need. I need to get one of these in the house. So I'm like, I found mom, I grabbed her. I'm like, Mom, come on. You got to come check this shit out right now. You got to look at this. I'm showing her, I'm like, look at this. Look at this game. Look at that guy. He just went into the background. And she's like, yeah, son, that's great. I don't know what I'm looking at or why this is any different than what you have. But yeah, so I showed her that shit, and the experience, the magic of that moment was just being able to finally like hold a PlayStation controller, because I'd seen it in the magazines like Electronic Gaming Monthly and shit like that, Game Pro, fucking whatever that Next Generation or whatever the fuck the name of that magazine was. But anyways, like to see it in those pictures was one thing, but to actually get your hands on the controller, like to play the shit, to see it, I mean, it's one of the, you know, one of my fondest gaming memories, you know, right up there with Mortal Kombat 1, you know, in the arcades, which I'll tell you a little bit about that later in a different video. If you guys really want to hear about it, let me know. But it was the magic of being a gamer and seeing how far gaming had come from where we were sitting in a 2D gaming environment, in a 2D world with the game systems that we had, to see a PlayStation in 3 fucking D. Like, it was like, this is it. This is the next generation, and this is where games are headed, and this right here, this console is starting something that will change gaming forever, and it did, and it has. So, needless to say, I didn't get the PlayStation right away. I mean, it was a few months down the line before I actually got one, and I'm going to tell you right now, I never expected this shit. It was just like the Nintendo. We're in the apartment, I'm chilling in the bedroom or whatever, playing whatever console I had at the time. I'm not sure what it was looking back, because I'm so focused on PlayStation right now, but my stepdad and mom walk in the door with a bag. And there's a PlayStation in that fucking bag. I'm like, are you fucking serious? And I didn't say that, but I'm thinking that. I'm just like, you can't fucking be serious. Like, you are kidding me. There's a PlayStation in that bag? A Sony Playstation 1 in that bag with a spaceship controller? Are you fucking serious? With what? And there was a PlayStation in that bag, and that shit was off the chain. Did I have a game? No. But I rented Ridge Racer, and Ridge Racer was awesome too. That game was off the chain at the time. I was renting a lot of games. So they did rent me games. They didn't have the money at the time to buy me a game with the console. But Ridge Racer had a funny thing that you could do with it. When you got Ridge Racer, you could rent that shit, right? And you could put it in the console and play that bitch. But when you wanted to take it back, what you could do is you could take the disc out of the PlayStation and take it back to, as long as you left your PlayStation on, you could play Ridge Racer as long as you fucking wanted to. Like, you didn't, as long as your PlayStation stayed on, you could play Ridge Racer for hours. So when it came time for me to take Ridge Racer back, I took the disc out, took that shit back, came home, and played Ridge Racer for hours. I played that shit for like a day and a half before I decided maybe I should turn the PlayStation off. But that was a cool trick that you could do with it, because it, for some reason, somehow, like at the time, like it read the whole game or whatever, like at once. So once it read it, like it was done, and you didn't have to put the disc back in. You could take the disc out. Now, I can't remember if you had to keep doing the same race or not, but I'm pretty sure that you could do the whole game. Like, you could keep playing the whole fucking game without the disc in there. It was some weird shit. But anyway, so I had the PlayStation for a while, and then I started working some construction with my cousin. I was like 14 years old, and I just needed some extra money just because I wanted to get more games, you know? So I'm working, and Resident Evil 1, I start seeing that shit on the cover of Electronic Gaming Monthly, and I'm like, this is something that I can get my, you know, I can get into this shit right here. This is some shit right here that's like, I'm like 14, 13, you know, getting, in my opinion, getting older, and I'm like, this is time for me to, you know, step up and start playing some serious games, some scary shit, some real shit, because, you know, I'm getting older now. And so you see the ads on Resident Evil 1 on the cover of that shit with a dog with like fucked up face and shit, like drool coming out, and you're like, holy shit, I'm getting my hands on that fucking game as soon as possible. So the way it worked out was Resident Evil 1 came out, and I was working construction, and I got my first paycheck ever. It was like $175 or something like that, the first paycheck ever. Straight to Best Buy. At the time, it wasn't even called Best Buy. It was called Electric Gaming, or Electric Avenue and More. Straight to Electric Avenue and More, and bought Resident Evil 1 on the PlayStation. The first game I ever bought with my own money as far as a PlayStation game. Now, I'd probably saved up maybe in the past to buy games, but this was the first time I ever had a job, and I actually got a job paycheck and bought my own game with my own money that wasn't given to me or earned from my parents or my mom and stepdad. So this was a monumental experience for me. This was like, I am stepping up now. I am buying my own shit. Like, I just got a paycheck. I am getting Resident Evil 1, and at the time, the PlayStation cases were like that fucking big. They were fucking huge. Like, you got a PlayStation 1 game, that shit was like a fucking, it was a DVD case. It was like, but that shit was a lot bigger than the fucking jewel cases they came out with later on in the PlayStation's life. Like, it was the real size case that we have these days, but it was even bigger than that. It wasn't a plastic ass case like you see these. It was just like, some of them were paper, and they were just big and gaudy, and it was, I don't know, it was longer than like these. It seems like it was just, to me, it seemed like this just monumental, like, huge fucking case, and Chris Redfield's on the cover, and I'm just like, that is the shit. So I buy that bitch. And, like, my life had never been the same after that game. Playing Resident Evil 1, like, was so fucking amazing. I beat that shit over and over and over again. I would get off of work and play that shit. And my cousin was like, this game is fucking lame. But, like, he didn't get it. He didn't play that shit. You have to hold that spaceship control. You have to see that shit. You have to play that fucking game. And then you realize how fucking good it is. And when you're walking through corridors and shit is coming at you and you're running out of ammunition, like, you start to realize this is it. And just like Toshinden, in a way, like, this game really showed me in a way, and a lot of other people, that gaming is more than just left to right. There's a lot more involved in that, and this game really helped out in a lot of ways. Obviously not with acting, because the acting was terrible, but the feeling that you had when you played this game, it gave you an emotion that a lot of games in the past haven't been able to give you. You had genuine fear and concern for your character. Like, you were worried. You wanted to do the safest possible thing. Your first playthrough, like, it was a scary time. You don't know what the fuck's coming around the corner, the way the camera angles are. Sometimes you can't even see around the corner until you get around the corner. So it's not like today's games where, like, you're on the fucking corner, hit LB to fucking corner thing, and then you can move the camera around like you have eyes in the back of your fucking head and a fucking telescope sticking out of your earlobe, you know? No, they didn't have that shit. You fucking had the camera angle that Capcom happened to give you, and Capcom happened to give you the most dramatic fucking camera angle that you could possibly think of. So yeah, you see a corner up there, but you can't fucking see around that bitch until you get up to it. So you better have your fucking bazooka ready, bitch, because it's time to shoot. So for me, that game was amazing, and that was just, you know, one of the many PlayStation 1 highlights that I've had, and then I wanted to share that with you guys. I think this video is pretty long, so I'll probably I think this video is pretty long, so I'll probably save the Resident Evil 2 conversation for later. But I have a ton of gaming stories, especially with PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Atari, Sega Genesis, you know, series like Mortal Kombat. There's so many different games and series I've played over the years, and so much, you know, so much that I have to say, and so many stories that I could tell you guys about what I've been through. So if you happen to like the series, if you want to hear me talk more about the shit I've been through and the games I've played, let me know, and I'll keep this going. So in the meantime, I'm going to roll. So peace. Thanks for watching Gaming with Swift.